Hello, and welcome to the SEAMEO STEM Ed webinar, where today's topic is looking at how do you start teaching STEM to engage students. Before I begin, I would like to remind you all of the SEAMEO STEM Ed definition. And the SEAMEO STEM Ed definition defines STEM education as a teaching and learning approach which emphasizes the connections among or integration of knowledge and skills in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to address problems facing our communities as well as larger global issues that require a skilled workforce and knowledgeable citizens who can apply these skills and knowledge to develop solutions. So that is how SEAMEO defines STEM education. It's all about integration. Today's webinar objective: at the conclusion, you should be able to list 3 tips how to start teaching STEM that engages students. So let's now take a look at these 3 tips. So 3 tips how to start teaching STEM that engage students. It's important that we engage students in any of our teachings. So how do you start teaching STEM? Well, tip number 1 is with a STEM related question. So a good way to start teaching STEM is with a STEM related question. For example, the subject is building and materials, and the question is, if you could build a house out of any material, what would it be and why? This is an engaging question for students to think about. So tip number 1, you start with a question. Tip number 2 is you state an interesting STEM related fact. For example, here's a STEM related fact. Did you know STEM workers enjoy a pay advantage compared with non-STEM workers with similar levels of education? So those who get involved in STEM education make more money. Another tip: how do you start teaching STEM? Tell an interesting STEM related story. Here's an example of an interesting STEM related story. The world right now is faced with the coronavirus pandemic. So how long before a coronavirus vaccine is ready? STEM professionals from around the world are working to find a vaccine for the coronavirus. Do you think the world will have a vaccine ready by 2021? So there's a STEM related story. Again, this webinar is about teaching STEM how we engage students. So here's the evaluation. What are 3 tips how to start teaching STEM that engages students? Tip number 1 would be ask a STEM related question. Tip number 2 would be state an interesting STEM related fact. And tip number 3 would be tell a STEM related story. These are 3 ways to start your teaching that engages students. Thank you for watching this webinar sponsored by the SEAMEO STEM Ed Center. Have a great day.